Welcome to Leader U by Black River Performance Management, where we believe work should fuel the human spirit, not drain it. In this leadership podcast, we will dive into the lived experiences of people flourishing in today's workplace and beyond. Join us to hear real-life examples of experiences from our own lives and from the leaders we know and trust. Successful organizations are dependent on people being competent in their job. To prepare people to do the work, we must prepare them according to the skills, knowledge, and abilities required for the job, correctly and consistently. One of the services Black River offers is evaluating employee and candidate competencies. Our 25 competency assessment focuses on the soft skills, or what we like to call them, essential skills. Our competency assessment is used for more accurate hiring practices as well as for staff development. Every organization could use these competencies to ensure an individual's skills match the soft skills required by the job, to nurture the right talent, to improve productivity, and to develop dynamic leaders. For a sample of the 25 leadership competencies, definitions, and assessment, email us at info@blackriverpm.com. Good morning, and thank you for watching the Leader U podcast. This morning, I have the pleasure of introducing my friend, Brett Gettman. I've known him for years, and I'm excited for him to share his story. Brett started taking professional photographs in 1987, helping with his dad's wedding photography business. In college, this skill grew to include video, where he worked in broadcast media as a camera operator and a sports news reporter. After he got his pilot's license in 2006, it further evolved with a desire to record his flights, which required him to learn how to edit, leading him to develop his concise and compelling visual style. Brett was an active real estate agent for over a decade and saw a clear connection between digital media and being competitive in the market. Now, with his real estate experience, along with a degree in communication advertising, he has an expert understanding of what goes into selling a property and how Red Hog Media fits into this equation. This combined expertise ultimately helps his clients achieve their goals. This career allows Brett to take his passion for helping businesses and combines it with his love of photography and video. When Brett isn't working, he's coaching his daughter's various sports teams, which reinforces the importance of small details and teamwork. Both of these aspects of coaching overlap with his business, which is why Brett is so good at it. Thank you for joining us today, Brett. I'm super excited to have an awesome conversation with you today about coaching and developing others.
Hey, thanks for having me. And coaching is definitely one of my favorite topics. I've always said that I probably should have been a teacher. I've always felt that whatever role I was in, because it wasn't always photography, as you know, but I've always leaned towards passing along information and training and teaching people. It's just something I really enjoy. And for whatever reason, though, I never became a teacher straight out of college. I don't know. At the time, I think, in the state that I was living in, it was like $18,000 a year.
I think it still is.
It still is.
I think it still is.
And that just didn't seem appealing. So, so anyway. But I do enjoy coaching. It's one of the greatest gifts.
Yeah.
And I think there's an old proverb: to truly master something, first you must teach it. That's always stuck in my head.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great way to learn, too, more about. I never come from a teaching position or a coaching position that I'm a know-it-all. I always come from a position that, hey, I have a lot to learn, but this is what I've learned so far.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll learn more together. And I always learn at least every time I teach a class that I've taught it 20 times, because that's how we build our business is through teaching realtors best practices. And every time I teach a class, I learn something new.
Mm-hmm. I love being a student. I think you can learn from anyone.
Yeah, you do. You learn more from behind the podium.
You do. And I can't wait to learn and share your wisdom with others, because I know together we have a lot of experience. And I'm curious just how you ended up in this field. I know it wasn't what you were thinking when you first got into photography, but how did that evolve?
It's a crazy side door entry into the business. So, like my bio said, my dad, who had a day job, is a nurse, but he worked at the local hospital, was like the largest employer in town. So he was pretty well networked, and he did senior pictures when we were in high school, and he did weddings, and this is back in the film days, and he just needed to be in two places at once. So he said, hey, look, I'll give you one canister of film. You've got 36 exposures. My goal is for you to get 2 keepers. Make them count. And he kind of said, these are the marquee moments, the cutting of the cake, the this and the that. So be there, stay out of the way, but get a shot. And if you do anything, just get it in focus, right? So I can't say that was a immediate path visual. And then in college, I didn't really do photography as a passion or even a hobby until college. Mm-hmm. Then I started hiking and hanging out and doing trips with my buddies, whatever it was, ski trips, whatever. And I took photography in college, where I actually learned some professional training right there at good old North Idaho College. I took photography and had a blast, actually. And, we were developing film in the dark room and burning and dodging and all that stuff. So I learned camera settings and a little bit more formal, and all the shenanigans. It's before social media and iPhones. So all my crazy shenanigans with my college buddies, we would always photograph and, kind of memorialize the trip. And I've looked back at some of those photos. They were horrible, but I mean, there wasn't anything really award-winning that was happening. But then at University of Idaho, I had an opportunity to work for KUID on the football game camera on the home games, run the video camera, and then that segued into basketball. And I did one cool documentary that I've tried to find. I can't find it anywhere, but it was a documentary on the Chief Joseph Trail, which has been something that I've been super hyper focused on, that type of Idaho history. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so just getting into the, running movie cameras and setting up dolly pipe and, all that stuff that is totally antiquated now. But it definitely kind of laid an eye, gave me an eye for that. And then after college, I don't put this on my bio too often, but I did move to Hollywood for a couple of years and studied acting with a little Playhouse West that was owned by Jeff Goldblum, and did some in front of the camera stuff that was a lot of fun. I definitely didn't want to pursue a life of an actor, but something compelled me to do it. I had a day job and I was just doing it, just kind of like a gym membership. It was a lot of fun, and it taught me to live in the moment, really just get out of your head and just be present, which was a gift. And so it was that I didn't touch a camera for really a decade, other than just socially. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until we got into real estate and saw, all the technological advances that happened during the last recession in 2008. You have to think about this. So it was pretty incredible that DSLRs also started doing video. And so you could have a handheld camera that was also a digital camera. And then what else happened? Facebook, YouTube. I mean, could you imagine the world before YouTube? And all those were really significant factors on how realtors could market a property. And still to this day are the most underutilized weapons in marketing for real estate. There's still a big gap in the industry that needs to be closed. So we embraced it. We saw, as realtors, we saw the competitive advantage for just taking professional photos, let alone doing a video. And so we learned architectural photography, which is a totally different animal than portrait or wedding or anything of that nature. It's completely different. So we relearned that. And my wife learned more of the, vertical lines and horizontal lines, and she didn't know necessarily camera settings. So I kind of brought that to the table, and then I got my drone license, and we were able to put it all together. It's funny to say this because now everybody's doing this, but we were the first company in the state of Idaho that I can find or heard of that was offering a one-stop shop to the real estate community. Before they had to call a drone pilot, they had to call a photographer, and then they had to write a check to a videographer, and which meant scheduling 3 appointments, which meant the seller had to clean their house 3 times, which mean they also had to write 3 checks. So we put it all together, squeezed it into 1 2-hour appointment, and did basically package deals. So of course everybody does that now, but we were certainly the first in the area to do it. And so that is just marketing. That has nothing to do with photography knowledge. I will never say I'm the best photographer on planet Earth or the best videographer. I've probably photographed, we could count the numbers, but probably around 3,000 properties. Never crashed a drone. That's something I'm proud of. Other than that, you know, we've just consistently been, you know, I wouldn't say like say we're not the best in town on everything. I still train. I still go to clinics and learn from people that are better than me. But the marketing, I think, is an important piece, customer service and all that stuff.
I love that you say that you're not the best. It's basically you're a continuous learner. That's
Yeah, sure.
I teach communication courses and things like that, and it's like I've never arrived. I'm always trying to find people that are better at it than me. And I think that's part of being just a lifelong learner and being willing to learn from anyone. There's always something you can learn. Or making mistakes is also a great great teacher.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So today we're here to talk about the leadership competency of coaching and developing others. And so, I mean, I know you've done a lot of coaching and developing with your daughters and also friends and people, but as far as employees, when your business started to grow, how did you, take people that had some skills for the job, but maybe not all the skills or competencies that you would like them to have? And what did that look like to help coach and develop them into
Yeah.
where you needed them to be?
Yep. So it started out just really, we needed our first employee, and it was the busy time of the year. And so we just kind of we started out hiring an admin and then sucked her into photography, and it didn't work out so great. And then so the next year we tried to be more methodical about it. And it was really more of a really long process of on the job shadowing and training. That wasn't efficient either, because if you apply the math is to, okay, you're paying this person to shadow, and sometimes, if some people, the way they have different learning styles, right? And they have to get their hands on the camera. I'm very verbal, and I also like to do things. I think that's called kinesthetic. I can't remember the learning style,
The
but
hands-on, the kinesthetic.
but some people like to read about it. Some people like to watch a video, and some people like to talk about it. And then there's maybe a little of everything, right? So we were definitely top heavy on shadowing. And so anyway, long story short, we took a pause and didn't scale for probably about 2 years. It was just Lauren and I. That's not sustainable. We were trying to grow the business, and we were choking on too much work and not having work-life balance, at least to where we wanted. And so then finally, it really happened about a year and a half ago, where first thing we did was we embraced a contractor model and not just a W-2 employee model. That was huge for us. We had to let go of some control. So that was step number one. And then it allowed me to kind of do like a mass hiring event, which it wasn't, it was 4 people, but I put together a curriculum, a course, and it was 2 3-day courses where we walked through, we started very general, then we went very specific. When I say specific, and we went from like the theory of real estate photography and how it's different than wedding and landscape, and then we went all the way down into camera settings and what kind of tripod head you should have and all that stuff. And then so we did 2 3-day classes, and then we kind of mixed it with like a week of job shadowing, and then we have a final exam period where we let them go shoot a house, and they shoot it all on their own, and we grade it and judge it, which is a great experience because they get to be all by themselves without us leaning over their back. The metadata tells us if their settings were wrong or right. And then we also see how well they can handle constructive criticism, because you have to have thick skin. If you're gonna charge money for your photography, there's a confidence factor that I will say that our people that we hire get to benefit from our experience, because if we look at it and, we've collectively, between Laura and myself and the crew, we're probably like 8,000 homes photographed. So if we look at it and say, hey, this is good, this is cuts the mustard and it's acceptable, and then a client who might think they're getting a very novice photographer try to beat up on them and, hey, this isn't good, I want my money back, we can confidently say, no, actually that's good. And we're never arrogant about it, but that's a big part of what we're trying to train is confidence.
Yeah.
And competence. And competence in general with the
competence
camera.
and confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence sells. So, when you're confident, you also fall in love with what you're doing. That's what, you develop the passion. You can try to learn something that you're passionate about, but you can also develop a passion for something that you just become good at. And so that's kind of where the confidence is. It's like, when somebody nails it, we'll tell them, hey, you really did a good job. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Don't get overconfident, but enjoy this moment because you really nailed this shoot.
Yeah.
But one of the things, if there's ever a photographer listening right now, or someone that aspires to be in any kind of visual medium, videography, drone piloting, whatever, there is one critical piece of advice that I give everybody that is the hardest thing to teach, and that's this. You have to figure out some sort of a specialty, a niche, and really understand it. And here's the example that I always use in class. So let's put real estate aside for a second. Let's say you want to be a surfing photographer. You want it, because that is a thing, by the way. There are professional videographers and photographers that follow professional surfers. So you don't have to be a professional surfer, but you better know how to balance yourself on a surfboard. You need to know how the waves break. You need to know if there's a moon cycle or a time of year, what beach they're going to, where they like to go, drink beer, buy weed, whatever it is. You need to figure out your clientele. You need to get in their mindset, and you need to learn everything that you can learn about surfer dudes and dudettes. And same with like the rodeo. If you want to photograph team roping, you need to know that on the second circle they're going to release, and you can catch that big loop when it's in midair. You need to know that stuff. So that way you can time the camera.
And
of course
you can anticipate what's coming, right?
Well, and also just be at the right show. And invariably, okay, photography skills aside, there's a human element to that. When you're talking to your clients, whether it's somebody at ESPN that's coordinating photography contractors for surfing, or whether it's the point of contact at a local rodeo, if you don't know anything about what the sport is or the event is that you're doing, okay, there's 20 other people that know more about it than you. And they're going to say one little thing that tips them over the edge, and you might, accidentally advertise your ignorance and not even know that you're doing it. Just like weddings. If you want, not everybody's been married. You don't have to be married to be a good wedding photographer, but you need to understand that there's certain things, cutting the cake, shoving the cake in each other's face, putting a ring on, or catching grandpa having a little too many drinks and getting a little crazy and putting his tie around his head. There's some things that you need to catch. And so, that's what I tell. So with real estate, this is the hardest thing, is to, we can teach you how to shoot the spaces and we can systematize it as much as possible. But if you don't know certain things, like, hey, that horse barn, that little silly stainless steel thing coming out of the wall is an automatic waterer that is worth $500.
Mm-hmm.
So we want a picture of that, showing the automatic waterer, because there's 12 of them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, or, certain things like fireplaces, non-negotiable, you want at least two. If there's a fireplace in the room, don't leave that room without getting at least two shots. There's just certain architectural features that need to be shown, that you need to know a thing or two about the business of telling a home story, that will absolutely help. Because sometimes, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know which, there's newer realtors that we're shooting for that maybe this is their first listing, or maybe worse, maybe it's their fifth listing. So they have a little bit of confidence, but it's like, dude, we shoot 5 homes in before lunch. This is your fifth listing, and I'm telling you that no, we don't need 5 interior shots of the chicken coop.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to sell this property.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, so we're good. We're good on the chicken coop, Or like toilets. No, we don't need a picture of a toilet. Never, ever, unless it's some fancy,
boudoir or
bidet or
bidet.
whatever. Yeah, with water fountains coming out of it, and it's straight from France, and it's got a gold handle.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll take a picture of it.
Yeah.
But any run-of-the-mill toilet, no, we can leave that out of the bathroom. It's assumed. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
If we can avoid it, we will.
Yeah.
So that's my advice to anyone who wants to get into the vision: is pick a niche and know it inside and out.
That's great. So when you're
and then the photography skills would be obviously the third leg to that 3-legged stool.
Yeah. And so you're building confidence and hopefully the competence along with that as they're gaining confidence. Because one of our things at Black River that we say is confidence doesn't equal competence, especially when you're hiring somebody new. They may come in, they're always excited to start a new job, and they have a lot of excitement or enthusiasm. So we say like enthusiasm doesn't equal competence is how we usually say it. So it's not just the confidence, but sometimes people are very enthusiastic, but that doesn't mean they have all the skills that they need to become competent. And it sounds like some of the coaching and developing that you do is actually it's classes, and then it's giving them the real opportunity to go out and practice it and then be graded on it. And then the other piece is getting that feedback. And that's
so that's where my wife and I kind of operate as a 1-2. So I do the classes and I get them started. I break the colts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I start to kind of segue out a little bit, and she'll look at their deliverables. Once they've graduated, they've done their final exam, and we've talked them through that. Then they go out into the wild, and we book shoots for them, and they start shooting houses. And then we give them feedback. As gentle as we can, but we also have to be very direct, So to kind of circle back to your competence and confidence, we teach the competence first, and the confidence just has to come over time. So through wins, right? And we try to set up wins for them. That's how confidence is nothing more than the recollection of your most recent wins. And you stack up enough wins, and but the win will mean more if you struggle for it, right? So you don't just at some point you got to take the T-ball out from under the ball and say, okay, you're going to go for the fast pitch now. Training wheels come off and away we go. But the confidence is like, all right, it'll come. It'll come. Let's focus on, you did really good on this, this, and this, and these 3 things you need improvement on. The tough one for me, just because my filter tends to leave my body, if there's something that's absolutely horrible, it's like, were you hungover? What happened today? Like, I know you know how to do this, but it's like, what, did you just call in sick and had your 12-year-old son do the shoot for you? What happened? And I have to suspend my sarcasm, and because it's not productive. I have to choke that one in. So my wife gets to hear that. And then, because we've had that happen recently, where a photographer escalated up to a video, and a video is like the complexity of shooting video, especially when there's somebody talking into the camera and you're coaching them through, okay, let's do another take and this and that and the other, and then you're by yourself, so you're, audio, is that coming in? And and it was horrible. I mean, it was horrible on all levels. But we had to like gently say, okay, let's try this again. This is what we would have done differently. So, and yeah,
I would say
it's ongoing. So it never stops. The coaching and the training never stops.
yeah, and I would say that it's one of the things that we see most frequently in organizations, that people don't get the feedback they need. Because it's a challenge for people to give difficult feedback if they haven't done much of it, and or give feedback that's constructive, like you said, like making sure that it's it's productive feedback, and it's you are using a filter and being a little more diplomatic and tactful, so that they realize that you really do care about their growth, you care about their product and their career. And so as they start to understand that it stings at first, but it's actually necessary for you to get better.
Yeah.
And we always talk about how it's feedback equals love. And if you're really loving and concerned about somebody, you really want them to do a better job. And
that's where it has to come from.
Your heart, yeah.
It really does. Like it when I think any business owner that says, okay, I'm going to go ahead and scale a business, you always have to reach into your pockets to share your clientele with some stranger. And we're in kind of a quasi art form. So there's reputation and there's, I guess I'll say ego. It's really not ego. It's just, you don't want to be embarrassed by saying, hey, this person's great, we've trained them, and then they deliver a horrible product. And you're like, oh, this is brutal. So you want to put as many countermeasures in place to avoid that experience. Nevertheless, it will happen. And you just have to put a trust into your process and know that we were all there once. We were all learning. But it does have to come from a place of genuine compassion for their success. Because, whatever your business is, whether it's making sandwiches or painting houses, there comes a point in time where you say to yourself, you know what? Let me share some of my profits and hire 2 other people. We'll just have to do 3 times as many houses or sell more sandwiches. Where we were at, and the training is ongoing, but it does come from a place of compassion to just see them succeed.
Yeah. One of the things that we talk about too is that if you're being kind and compassionate and loving towards your employees, they know it from you. They don't hear it from other people. They hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, where that they get the feedback they need from their leaders. They're not hearing from their peers that they didn't do a good job, because that's one of the most painful things, and it breaks down trust in an organization when they find out their performance is not up to par, not from you, right?
So yeah, and what's interesting about our business, shooting for real estate agents, is we get feedback most of the time. So like sometimes if we don't hear anything, like no news is great news, that's most of the time. Sometimes we get a good boy, girl. We always forward those to the employee.
Nice.
100%. We always, and as soon as possible too. Like as soon as we get it, we send it over to them, and then we chime in, and it's all pats on the backs. If the feedback is negative, because we will get that as well, we'll first, before we forward it blindly, we'll always take a look at what the complaint was. And thank God, knock on wood, we don't get too many, but it'll happen. And so we'll look and say, okay, is this a valid, or are they just, maybe they're new and they don't know what they're looking at. And in some cases, we'll see both. Sometimes it actually is valid. So we'll say, hey, look, this is the feedback we got. We can see where they're coming from. They see a little color distortion on one photograph. So anyway, and it may not even be something that they did wrong, but maybe it did, maybe it was, maybe they wanted a shot of this or that and the other, something important. So we do a pretty good job of getting feedback from the clients and forwarding them along, because it is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So one of the things that I feel like, we share a love for photography. I also took the classes at North Idaho College, and
El Corliss?
yes, and have spent some time in a dark room, and have spent a lot of time taking photography classes, doing more people photos, candids and seniors and things like that. But one of the things that I've found as I'm presenting to people or teaching or coaching or leading others is that being able to be able to see a variety of perspectives is a huge win as it relates to understanding other people and understanding different ways to see problems, solutions, just different views than you would have if you weren't able to see the world from a variety of different perspectives. And can you say how you're able to incorporate what you've learned, your skills in photography and perspective taking, into how you go about leading others or coaching and developing them?
Yeah, we actually have created a pretty, I won't say it's rigid, but we've created a really good, we call it a flow, shooting for the flow of the home. And so we've created a very systematized way to shoot a home that is what you'll hear in photography a lot. You may have heard shoot for the edit. So one of the things we do is we were one of the first companies that do this, and now I think everybody's doing it, where we'll actually name and sort and arrange the photos. There's a huge advantage when a realtor selects the number one clickbait photo to be the number one photo, and then tell the story to quickly engage that viewer to get them inside the home. If you don't do it by photo number 7, there's a 60% chance they might back out and go to the next one, right? Not in a low inventory market like we've seen in the last few years, but we're getting back into a higher inventory market where, they might be combing through lots of homes. You want to engage them and pull them all the way through the home while they're sitting on the couch with their iPhone. So that arrangement is critical. We'll teach the photographers to shoot in that order whenever possible. And then, so there's an arrangement. We have it very systematized, 4 pictures of this, 2 of that, 3 of that, 3 of that. And so that way, if they're on autopilot, which they can be sometimes, because they're looking at other things. Mm-hmm. So they're looking at, oh, shoot, there's a cat in the window, or that blind, you have to do, okay, this one's all the way up and this one's a foot down. You kind of, there's so many things a photographer is looking at, so many details, that we want them to have some sort of a template that they could not have to think about what order they should be shooting in. And then it makes the edit and the arrangement by the admin on the back end so much easier. Mm-hmm. They know how to name the photos and sort them for delivery. Mm-hmm. So we kind of have it dialed in pretty good. But yeah, the perspective, you can get lost in just looking at photography in a home and not know where you are. So having, a shot into a space and then a shot back out that leads you into the next room, the shot in and the shot out, it just establishes a flow because you want people to feel very comfortable. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love to get into flow as much as I can, whether it's in life or, just finding that place where everything seems to be, time's flying, and you feel like you're in that space where you want to be.
Yeah.
So I think about like leading others, being able to take the perspectives of, in different lenses too. Just think about what you can see with a wide angle lens versus a zoom lens, right?
Yeah.
When you're zoomed in on the issues versus when you are able to zoom out and see the whole picture and what's actually going on. And half the time I noticed that some people aren't able to switch their lenses. They get micro-focused on one thing and the problem and aren't able to zoom back out to see the big picture and what is actually working well and what is possible problem or solution.
Yeah, I'm laughing because, I mean, not to pick on anybody, but like within our industry as a whole, we'll all make fun of like a wedding photographer that tries to debut as a real estate photographer.
Mm-hmm.
You can always tell because they'll have like one or two pictures of like a beautiful vase with flowers that are bockened in the background and out of focus. And we're like, that is a gorgeous picture, but that is absolutely not going to sell the house. And when you're charging for 36 photos, you just burned one as a dud that says nothing about the home. Now, having said that, in an Airbnb, we will have the mountain bike stacked up in the garage because that's part of the rental. But in a real estate shoot, your photos are trying to be used to procure a buyer. So we do not need a close up of flowers. That's a wedding photographer rookie mistake
Mm-hmm.
because that would be a perfectly appropriate wedding photo.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Let's get a close up, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's a different job,
I was at
What
my
are the photos used for?
I was at my son's graduation, and I got nice photos, little with my iPhone, of the cookies with the bee on them, and then the table arrangement, because I know that it will go well with the collage. But
Yeah, that makes sense.
it's not going to be the ideal photo, but it looks great for the collage or the memories
Yeah,
that they're trying to have from their special day,
yeah.
right?
And on that note, though, so switching hats, like on social media, I think people in general, iPhones and most phones are right around 35 millimeters when they're on number one, and a lot of times people are standing far enough away to where it's a really wide shot. My favorite thing to do when I'm well, it's sort of my favorite thing to do, and in some ways it's a pain in the neck, but I'll see a really cool photo and I'm like, wow, if they would have just zoomed in, I'll just open it up and zoom in a little bit and think that was the photo.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't need to see all the busyness in the background. Like zoom in on the people,
Mm-hmm.
fill the frame with the subject.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting how that perspective will make such a difference on the image and is also a metaphor for life,
It
right?
is.
Changing your perspective.
Yep. And I think it's a skill that's underutilized as it relates to leading other people, or as it relates to actually just being a lifelong learner and knowing that where your limitations are and understanding. I know for me, the first time I moved out of Idaho and out of country, my world opened up, and my focal point of what I knew was so expanded. Living outside the U.S., looking back in,
Yeah.
and also just the experiences that you get from being younger and work jobs that you have, skills that you build over time. I feel like you start to get more wide angle lenses added. I feel like
Sure.
when you first are a new photographer, you start getting new lens, you get new equipment, and then all of a sudden your pictures start to look different, and things start to look completely different when you add new tools to your bag.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's cool. And then we're in such a cool age with digital photography. You can always in a pinch shoot wide and then in post draw it in. Most cameras have the megapixels to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Most full frame lenses or full frame sensors have somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 50 megapixels, so you can expand those photos out and not get grain.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't go the other way.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's one thing that I've learned. I was doing some research on perspective taking, and one thing that I learned recently that it shocked me is that we actually don't see the world, none of us see the world the same way. We actually see it from our own physical body state. For example, people walking, or people seeing a hill and having to walk up this hill. They researched people walking up hills in San Francisco and how they would perceive the hill. And it ends up being those that are weaker, older, heavier, out of shape, perceive the hill as bigger than it is, and the slope of the hill.
Okay.
And they have a variety of, this book's called Perception, and it really talks about how our bodies actually help us to perceive things. So we perceive things not as they are, but as how our body can handle them. And so we all have a different perception and perspective on whatever we see, no matter what it is, like whether it's our political views, the way we train people, the way we, whatever we're looking at a hill, looking at anything that we approach, we all have a different perspective and a different perception of what is actually happening. So we don't see the world as it is. We see it through our own lenses.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so true. I mean, it's so important to be able to step outside yourself, look at things from a different way. That helps you work with people.
Mm-hmm.
Having those experiences like you had living out of country. I had a similar experience. I lived in LA.
Yes, it's something different than what you're used to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, kidding aside, like I've lived in Oklahoma and there definitely are microcultures and people look at life and think things differently. But for the most part, Americans are Americans, right? We mostly have the same type of viewpoints, just from a different perspective. But I was thinking, leading into this podcast, like I was actually trying to ask myself, is there anything that I do that's really unique? Like, what would I even come up with in terms of, like, if you asked me? And one thing I think that I definitely do, and this is on this topic of perspective, I was going to bring it up, but is, I adapt to change really well. And in fact, I'm kind of addicted to it. So I think that kind of that's another way of saying changing perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Like I will self-inflict a new perspective on myself. For example, I mean, just moving to Arizona, we had some friends literally say, "You guys are nuts. You have a really good business in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Why on earth do you want to move to the Phoenix area?" And it was, just for scalability. And I'm like, well, we can scale this way.
Mm-hmm.
We have kind of saturated our market and want to expand. Plus, I like sunshine. I'm solar powered. And this is an opportunity to, work in 2 states. And it wasn't easy,
Mm-hmm.
but it worked. And but I mean, a lot of, you see it, like I have one friend who went to the same gym every day for 18 years, and that gym closed just like out of the blue. They gave him a month's notice and saying, "Hey, we're going to close." And it derailed him. He like legitimately stopped going to the gym, and he gained like 30 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even wrap my brain around that. Like, go find another gym, do what you want to do. And so I would say if there's any, I don't think it's a secret to success, but anything that I do really well, probably almost too much to a fault, is I embrace change.
Yeah, that's a good one.
ADHD is a great time. I recommend it for everybody.
I think we all have a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. So, what are some of the wisdom or tips that you wish you had known earlier in your career, not just as a photographer, but just starting a business, no matter what it is? Like,
Mhm.
what are some things or wisdom or tips that you wish that you knew 20 years ago?
Well, so this is what's interesting. Good question, because it's going to derail everything I just said. I feel like I knew what I needed to. I just didn't apply it. So, divine intervention, God, however you want to say it, brought the right people into my life. Oh man, I would never admit this to my teenage daughter, but I felt like I knew the fundamentals of everything I needed to know to enter into the world by age 18.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't listen. I didn't apply it
Mm-hmm.
because I was in my own head, like whatever, doing my own thing. But fundamentally, so if I could go back and counsel myself, yeah, I'd probably just say, hey, you know what? Let's focus on this. You enjoy this. Go with your gut on that. I don't, look back and wished I wouldn't have done things the same way. I did what I did, and here I am. But like a lot of young kids, I felt the pressure to go to college and get the degree. And I am using my degree, but I also know that I didn't need it to do what I do. I could have learned everything that I learned in my college degree in like a 2-hour YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was my degree, right? Like, I'm not saying, I tell my daughters, you want to be an engineer, you got to go to college and go get an engineering. But the hands-on experience that I learned that I'm using now, I could have done that differently, but because then it wasn't just my bachelor's degree too, like I went to law school and I hated that and dropped out of law school and then made a run at getting my master's in counseling and like, no, that math doesn't work. I want to just grab another 30,000 in student loan debt on top of my current 20
Mm-hmm.
to get a $35,000 a year job in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
No, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I did waste a lot of time going in circles with law school and grad school and all that. So that would be one thing that I would do differently. I feel like your 20s, as quickly as you can, go to work and work your ass off and make as many mistakes as you can working your ass off. Do that.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be much better off in your 30s. I didn't right away. I was working through college,
Mm-hmm.
having a good time with, my summer jobs and all that. But yeah, that's probably the one thing I would tell myself. Just, okay, you've been through this before. You don't like grad school, law school. Just go to work your ass off, and have fun doing that.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. What else? Something else as far as it relates to somebody maybe who's coaching new employees, or what you would have wished you would have known earlier when you first started coaching and developing, well, not only your employees, but even kids, just thinking of all the people that are in our lives that we coach and develop on a daily basis.
There's definitely some personality profiles that are super helpful, like the DISC, and there's a few others. I think they're great tools. And I think they should probably be, and to a fault, I don't use it enough. I've taken DISC profiles probably a handful of times in my adult life, and I kid you not. Like, I took one when I got straight out of the military, and I was a high C. And then I took one after being a realtor for 2 years, and I was a high D. And, always high I, too. It's like, I'm all over the place. I think, your whatever state of mind and wherever you're at in your journey in life can influence how you're thinking and reacting. And I think that's a blessing. Like, I feel like our brains are way more malleable than people realize. And because I haven't always been in photography. In fact, not even close. I've been full time in it for 8 years now. But I mean, I've had a lot of other jobs and careers,
Mm-hmm.
and it changes your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It changes the way you think. It realigns your brain connections. I guess I'm not a brain scientist.
Neuroplasticity.
Yeah, that's
is the word
one.
you're looking for. I have done brain surgery in my former life.
Yeah, I've done brain destruction on Friday night. So.
No, absolutely. The more you use it, and that's the one thing that Rob and I have talked about this multiple times, that the moment we learn that you can learn anything, like, I didn't realize that yet when I was younger, that I could learn to be a surgeon, that I could learn, I'm not that I'm a surgeon, but if I wanted to be, I could learn it. If I wanted to learn to be a photographer, I could learn that skill. If I want to learn to be a CEO, I can learn that skill. If I want to learn how to speak publicly, I can learn that skill. If I want to learn how to ride a mountain bike, I can learn that skill. Like,
Yeah.
And now we have so much
information
that there's really no excuse to not want to. If you want to learn to play guitar, you could teach yourself. My kids did this. They taught themselves how to play guitar on YouTube. So I mean, we have so much information.
I've got guitars hanging on the walls, and I look back to when I was 21 and I learned how to play guitar, and I paid somebody, and I would go to their office every Tuesday. And when I wanted sheet music, I'd have to go subscribe or buy the sheet music and pay $4 a song. And now you can go on YouTube and get whatever song you want and have 4 different teaching methods, all right there. For sure. The information age is awesome. The human brain is an amazing thing. And I think this is really relevant to talk about because, AI and all the stuff that's coming and going to end the world and whatever. Here's what I know is throughout the existence of the human species, we have brains that are highly adaptive, and we may have talked about this before, but for everyone listening, we woke up in the middle of the night and the buffalo herd that we were following for the last 6 months vanished because a bolt of lightning struck and spooked the herd off, or, heavy rains destroyed our crops, or the salmon migration changed and, whatever, or a high water flow prevented us from catching fish for a week. Whatever the case may be, we've adapted to fast and furious changes at the drop of a hat. That's how we've survived. We didn't have the ability to have savings accounts and freezers full of meat and jobs with a paycheck every other Friday. We didn't live that way until fairly recently. So it's pretty awesome to think about what the brain can do. And I've enjoyed my, jokingly, my ADHD with different jobs. And, I've been poked fun at it, but I enjoy it. Like the thought of having the same career for 40 years. I respect people that can do that because you don't want your brain surgeon to be like, yeah, this is something new I'm trying today.
You're gonna see how it goes.
I was a bartender last year.
That's why it's called practice. That's why it's called practice.
Same with your attorney. They call that a practice because you get out of law school, you still need practice. But so the human brain is a very, very malleable instrument that people don't think about, and I think we are in a mental health crisis. With kids on social media and violence and active shooters and
loneliness,
all that stuff.
The loneliness,
I apologize if you've heard me say this before, but when I was in the military, basic training was this amazing experience to see people that, it was a pretty good cross section. There was if there was 100 of us in the battalion, I forget the exact number, but 20 people were like country farm kids that grew up hunting and been around guns, and there was the masses that were like just middle America suburban kids, and then there was another 20% that were straight out of the inner city that didn't, only if they had any experience with guns, they weren't good experiences. And 8 weeks later, they were not only all comfortable with guns, but all ready to kill. They were all trained killers at different levels. That's pretty amazing. That's not something that people probably want to talk about or think about, but that is how quickly you can teach someone how to kill and look forward to it. And so, when you have kids playing violent Black Ops, Call of Duty, whatever for 3 hours every day after school, what are you doing? You can't do that. That's just not good for the brain. So we have to look at what we're inputting into our kids' brains, and I know maybe this will be a good segue to coaching kids and stuff like that. But we focus on junk food, hopefully, but we don't focus as much on junk food for the brain. Oh, it's just too easy. They're being quiet. They're playing by themselves. Violent games, and no, that's not good. That's just not good.
Yeah.
You shouldn't get points for shooting someone in the head and watching the brains come out of their head. That should not be something that you're rewarded by a new level with points. So
I agree. And I think I'm glad you brought up the mental health. It is Mental Health Awareness Month right now. And we specifically live in a state where suicide's the highest, it's consistently one of the highest states in the nation. And we also lead female incarceration we're one of the leading states. So we don't focus on education or mental health. And that's something that I think we all need to be considering when we're coaching and developing people and we're finding out where their challenges are. And I think it's important to really check in with your people when you're coaching them and find out if there's ways that you can help them or support them if they are having mental health challenges. Have you had employees that have been struggling? They were going through a divorce. They were having mental health. I mean, things happen. We can be on top of the world one day and on the bottom of the pyramid the next.
Mm-hmm. So it's funny you say pyramid, like
the Maslow's hierarchy.
yeah, I'm a nerd for a good checklist, being a pilot, and I have like two checklists that I love to reference. One for personal and one for business. And for personal, it's Maslow's, which also affects business. But then also for business, my little checklist is the 4 P's of marketing: price, place, product, and promotion. That's just like I know it's training wheels, and somebody with a business degree would say, hey, that's really elementary. Well, it is, but it's a good pocket field guide to just like look at your business real quick and apply the 4 P's to just say, okay, where are we at? Where can we make a fast tweak? You can obviously change your pricing pretty quickly, but usually that's the last thing you should go to. I never sell on price. If anything, we'll raise prices. But yeah, those are my two little things. And then Maslow's, I love that because it's easy to think, hey, I'm on top of the world and I've got everything. And it's like, well, if you wake up and you're tired and you haven't drank enough water or you haven't taken care of yourself, now life will drag you back down to the bottom real fast. So it's like, okay, you're not gonna do anything at a high level today unless you take care of your body.
Absolutely. And I think that we have to get back to the basics sometimes and check in with people on how they're doing on their basic needs, their basic human needs, and then also their basic psychological needs, which are the autonomy, competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Those are the 3 pieces that lead to optimal levels of motivation, and also just having those needs met, not just at work, but at home. So we talk about it being check your car, your competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Check it at home and check it at work. So when you're coaching someone else, how can we ask questions to find out how are they doing in these areas? Because I guarantee if their performance is lacking, something's out of alignment in their car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we all. I really struggle with taking care of myself, but I definitely owe to Andrew Huberman. Like, if you want to change your mindset, just go work out, and it works every time.
Yeah. It's a podcast that I listen to. But the problem with his is that they're so long. They're 2 3 hours.
Oh man,
they're 2 or 3 hours. I just want the cliff notes. But I love the Huberman podcast. I love learning about the brain.
Are killing me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Those Google Shorts.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll watch 10 of those.
Exactly. Well, I just really appreciate your time and your willingness to get on here and share your wisdom as it relates to coaching and developing employees, and also just coaching. We have to be able to lead ourselves too, and that comes into our own mental health. That comes into getting the education, getting the tools we need to become competent in our jobs, and then sharing that with others. And oftentimes it takes feedback. It takes a lot of people are involved in one person's success. And I know I didn't get where I am today on my own. There were people that invested in me and believed that I could do what I could do before I did. Mm-hmm. What about you?
That's so funny you say that. For the first time in my entire life, about 2 months ago, I started making a list of anyone I could ever think of that either invested in me directly or just influenced me. Mm-hmm. So there's people that, influence us that maybe they didn't even know.
Right.
Like old teacher or whatever. So I started putting that list together, and it was a pretty fun experiment. Just kind of going through and it was an act of gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the people aren't even alive. Like the guy that taught me how to play guitar is not even alive. Um, but it's a great act of gratitude to just kind of go down through that list and look at all the people that influenced me and invested in me. It's sort of a fun thing to do. I encourage everybody to do that.
That's a great exercise. And I think the more gratitude you have for other people helping you, the more willingness you then have to help others in their journey. Because I really think you can break life into three stages: the learning stages, the earning stages, and then the returning stages. And I mean, you can still overlap. You can always learn. You can always earn. But at this point of life, we're over the hump. We're in the 50s now, and I feel like this is the time when you have to start, or
Yeah.
you would feel more purpose if you are and live a more healthy, happy life if you're actually returning some of the things that were given to you. People who believed in you, people who coached and developed you for free, or mentored you, or put your name in the hat, or gave you a great reference that all of a sudden, changes the trajectory of your life. Sometimes one person has that kind of influence that they could open a door for you in an instance.
Yeah, for sure. For absolutely. Yeah, I look back at all the people that, helped me out and shaped who I am, and I only wish I would have applied it better, but we had a teacher in high school, Coach Dan Nip. Just he taught us so much about mental visualization and mental preparedness in your mental game. Like, I've never met anyone since, and that was back in 1986 when he taught us those tips and tricks.
Mm-hmm.
He was coached by other coaches that were training Olympians, and
Mm-hmm.
and he just brought that to us. And yeah, it's like the tools are there. It's cool to have those, and then pass those along to my daughters
Mm-hmm.
when they're riding horses or getting ready for a competition. Because that's our new thing now. I think I bought a horse since I last talked to you.
You had bought it when you hadn't
Okay,
told your
just
daughter
bought it.
you hadn't told your daughter about it yet when I saw
Yeah,
you last.
that's right. Yeah, she knows. Yeah, she's
she
been.
she loves it.
Yeah, oh yeah. So that's our life now, is going to the barn and riding horses and rodeos.
Nice. Those are some good photo ops. I've photoed many a rodeos. My daughter was in horse camp and all that stuff. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
right on.
yeah. So I enjoy that as well. Well, I just appreciate your time, and it's your most valuable resource. And I think you have some tips and wisdom here that'll be really helpful to people that have new employees and also are just looking for ways to improve their own coaching skills, because it's a skill. It's like any other skill. It's easier to learn when you talk to somebody who's done it before and who's made mistakes with it and what they've learned. I'm still on the coaching journey. I coach a lot of clients, but I learn as much from my clients as they do from me. It's a never-ending process, and I think we can always enhance our skills by just tapping into wisdom and learning from all of our mistakes.
For sure. The best advice I ever got was, if you take care of your business, the business will take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a loaded statement. That isn't just, it is, of course, taking care of your employees, but it's everything. Like, if you're starting up a business, taking the time to, get a separate business checking account, treat your business with respect, treat it like a business, and pay yourself, and have a business entity, and surround yourself with a CPA and a coach and a plan and training.
Mm-hmm.
You take care of your business, it'll take care of you.
I love that. That's probably going to be the name of the podcast. Coaching and developing 101. You take care of your business and I'll take care of you. I love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hey, yeah. What other way is there to live, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Brett. I appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure getting to chat with you. Did you know that Black River offers a learning management system with over 10,000 development topics? The Leader U Learning Management System is an affordable option that empowers organizations to manage and curate in-house learning development opportunities. The built-in calendar and scheduling system can be used to coordinate compliance courses such as HR Respectful Workplace and IT Cybersecurity, or lunch and learns on topics such as motivation, self-leadership, and leading more effective meetings. At Black River, we are dedicated to providing a learning solution that focuses on engaging employees in their own self and team development. Our clients use the Leader U Learning Management System to remove barriers through accessible and self-paced micro-learning content, save time with the centralized and automated training assignments, promote more meaningful team discussions, issue certificates of completion and track development efforts, and enhance and simplify onboarding efforts. Contact us for more information on our learning management system at info@blackriverpm.com.